This is going to be so much fun. I know how much you've all been looking forward to this. Yes, the 30 days clock has started as of now. We're on the clock for earning our first dollar. And of course that means we've got to pick a market to test. And remember those words, a market to test, not a market for life, not a market for Christmas, not a market to marry, not a market to take out and get all drunk with and then have a terrible one night. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're just talking about a market to test. Yet, and please don't feel bad about this, because let me tell you, over 12 years of doing this, this is the hardest part of all. And I know even with some of our discussions in the first 2 weeks, it's been a real challenge. But what I'm hoping now is, because of the work that we've done in the first 2 weeks, it gives you new hope. This is not business as usual. This is not just you doing another course again, because now we know that there are different entrepreneurial operating systems. We know that people do things differently, and because of this, everything that we do here is different. And you'll be hearing me refer during week 3 to different issues, challenges and opportunities based on your entrepreneurial operating system. So that's important. Then, of course, we've got our organizational system, and I've been thrilled with the number of you who have found Kanban as life-changing already, as I know it is. And by being able to organize yourself and being able to have a visual process which works for entrepreneurs, because like I said, 97% of you are just not good at a to-do list, can't do it. So this is going to be an exciting week, even though you're probably a little bit nervous. And I have to say right up front that this week we've got a new checklist for you, which is the whole process. And thank you, my high fact finder and high follow through types that have requested this. Great idea. So I've created an entire checklist that you'll find with this, and it'll give you a sort of an outline of the entire process, so you need where we're going, which is something that is so desperately needed for high follow through, high fact finder types. So there you have it. So you've got an overall look of this. Thank you for that feedback. But right now, we've got to help, and I've got to be upfront. You know, for you high fact finders out there, this is a tricky week. This is a challenge. Yet you've got no excuse, because we're acknowledging now up front. What's the first step in any 12-step program? Is acknowledging we have a problem. And it's okay. It's okay for you to have a problem, because it's never been presented like this before. So now everything changes. So let's look at what I had to look at when I was designing this system. The biggest problem was I can't choose, and I'm pretty sure, as we'll talk about in a little bit more depth later, it's because of this mountain and molehill problem. You know, for me, running a market test is the decision level of what type of sushi I'm going to have at lunch today. That's it. And I might, break out from my salmon and avocado, which is my absolute favorite. And you know what? I might go crazy and go for some crispy chicken, or maybe some tuna if I'm going super duper radical. That is all of that. That's the level that this stuff should be at, right? So I think that's probably the biggest reason. And I think there's some other reasons, though, that all culminate to make this such a tricky thing. So we need to help you with I can't choose. Steamrolling on top of this is an incredibly legitimate problem, which is I'm not an expert. Well, it's a legitimate problem to have in your head. Turns out it's not such a legitimate problem when you break it down. There are so many people, there are many people in this course that are legit experts, and they're building something in their topic. That's great. But there are just as many people, if not more people, who are enthusiasts, and that's totally okay as well. As I talked about in the book, Oprah, highest paid person on television while she was actively working on television, her area of expertise was not anything in particular other than being able to identify and then bring the best out of these amazing life coaches, Eckhart Tolle, Dr. Phil, etc., 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 Dr. Oz, all these different people, right? And she, because she had built up trust with her tribe, that was all that was required. Michael Parkinson's the equivalent in the United Kingdom. So if you're on a journey, and a journey of discovery, some of the most successful niche pioneers that I know, people who've made the most money out of niche, are people who have documented their journey and brought people along with them. So here's what we're going to learn together. Here's what we're going to discover together. Let me get all of these experts and let me interview the experts for you and collate all the best stuff, so I'm saving you an immense amount of time. And remember, when we're saving anybody an immense amount of time, that is worth value. And as my good mate Taki Moore said to me the other day, if you can articulate your tribe's problems better than they can, they will attribute to you the ability to help them find a solution. And part of choosing a market, and particularly drilling down to a single target market, is all about that, because when we take on pains, gains and jobs to be done next week and really get our teeth into researching a market, woof, that's where we've got a really serious advantage. Another thing that I get a lot, and even people who pay me an enormous sum of money for personal coaching, is I'm just not that jazzed about anything. They've sort of got an Eeyore approach. And I get the sense that underlying this is just a combination of all the things that I've talked about, plus just being beaten down by trying things and not getting things done, and trying to, do legitimately put real effort and energy into doing these courses, and it just doesn't work. And I'm so sympathetic to all of this, because, unfortunately, it wasn't your fault. Here you were with your entrepreneurial operating system trying to learn and follow a process that was designed for a completely different entrepreneurial operating system. And after you do that a few times, then you just get knocked about, right? You just get beaten up and you're just not sure. You're just sitting there thinking, I'm just not that excited about anything anymore. But fortunately, we've got your back. So we have to allow for that as well, right? And there are many ways that we can look at that as part of this process. Ultimately, though, the huge fear here is, and the biggest concern that you all have, is another failure. Already, I bet you've got people in your family or close friends going, oh, here we go, here goes Ed with another one of his flights of fancy. Oh, another course, is it, Ed? Yeah, okay. There's just this, there's this spoken or unspoken skepticism from those that are around you and those whose opinion you care about. You just don't want to stuff this up again. And so it's easier, instead of asking the question again, it's easier to stay on the sidelines and not do it. I'm reminded of an old joke a sales trainer told me once, which is why are cinemas open during the day? And the answer is, it's for all the salespeople. Because it's easier for a salesperson to say to their sales manager, when the sales manager says, hey, did you close that deal? And the salesperson says, oh, no, not yet. I haven't, no, we haven't been able to, but it's still in play, right? Rather than actually asking for the deal and being told yes or no, because of the pain, the inherent pain that they will feel when they go back to the sales manager, which is, by the way, why sales is so balked and why there are so many better things you can do. Fortunately, that's the same here as well. So let's look at the positives of this. What do you want out of this? And it's pretty simple. Show me the money, right? We want a market that makes money, that can support us. And fortunately, there has never been a better time. As I am recording this, there has literally never been a better time for you to make a living. From going to $0 to $100,000 in 12 months, it's never been easier. Never ever. been easier. And that's very exciting. And then if you have an operating system and you can conduct yourself and with your entrepreneurial operating system, and then have a operational system, your Kanban, to guide you through the fact that you've got a whole lot of responsibilities, you've got a whole bunch of commitments, you've got a life, and that you can figure out how to build this on the side while still fulfilling all of those commitments, it's bloody exciting. So you need to have the money. Very important. One of the ways that you can make $100,000 in 12 months is to go work 3 jobs and work 18 hours a day. That sort of defeats the purpose of what we're trying to do here. So it's very important that we find a market that you enjoy, that you really are interested in. Because let me tell you, when you make a business out of anything that you love, there are times where it becomes stressful. I still have stressful times in my business. Boy, do I. It just happens, right? All that happens, as you get more and more successful, is your capacity to deal with the crap that's coming at you expands, right? You can deal with more crap tons of crap, and that's the gift you get for being successful. Don't be depressed about that. It's much easier to deal with problems when you know where you've got $100,000 of resources coming from, right? It makes it a hell of a lot easier to deal with other stuff that pops up every now and then. So it makes sense for us to design something that fits around your lifestyle, around what you enjoy. And there's another thing that we have to keep in mind here. You've got to have a market that you can be proud of, that you're comfortable talking about. We call it the Oprah test. Would you be comfortable enough, like me here, talking with that very lifelike Oprah? See, I should use this as my testimonial. So, seen on Oprah. Look at that. How legit is that? Isn't that Oprah looking totally legit there? It's got to be true. So many of my testimonials are acquired from Madame Tussauds Wax Museum. There's a life hack for you. Get testimonials from famous people posed next to their wax models. No, in all seriousness, you should be comfortable. You want to be comfortable about talking about what you're doing. I've dealt with people in the past who, can't talk about their market because they're not particularly proud of what they do. And that's a shame. That's troubling. So, you really have to keep that in mind when you are deciding a market. Most importantly, I want you to develop up a niche style type business. I introduced this word, and it's the name of Julie's company, because we want to be in a niche that you're excited with, a lifestyle that you enjoy. Here's me at Oktoberfest with my incredibly bitching Oktoberfest hat, which my eldest daughter Hannah there, as you can see, just thinks I am a style and fashion icon. I want you to be able to wear crazy German hats, and I reckon I look awesome personally in that hat. I still wear it to this day. But I want you to be able to do things like take your daughter on a 3-week journey to Europe, because she's getting older and soon she'll be interested in, boys and not me. And so I want you to be able to have those sorts of experiences. I want you to be able to, whatever that means to you, whatever that is to you. That's why we're doing all of this. So we've just got this minor little detail standing in front of us, which is select a market. Let me give you some reasons why it's so important that we select this market this week. And the first one is I had to study thousands of pages for this. You get the 10-second version, which is the difference between deliberate and emerging strategy. And there's a bunch of studies which I talked about in the book. One in particular, which was a survey of 3,500 successful startups. And the question was simple. Hey, was the idea that you started out with for your company the idea that ultimately made you successful? And the answer in an overwhelming 93% of times was no, it wasn't. We had to pivot. We had to do something different. Something emerged. And it turns out this is a big thing. When I first read that, I thought, oh, that's rubbish. Come on. And then I thought about every single success that I've ever had. And they were all pivots. They were all things that happened unexpectedly. But here's the deal, and this is what's so empowering and important about this process. There are 2 takeaways. One is you've only got a 7% chance of getting your market pick right. So, Why stress? You're going to be wrong. And I know you're thinking, geez, Ed, thank you so much for this. No, don't be thinking that. This is not the concern here. The better way to think about it is this, and this is the actual lesson, is if you don't start, if you don't pick, if you don't have a deliberate strategy, so we're picking a market test, not a market, just a test. We're just deciding which type of sushi we want. But which market test? By conducting market tests, guess what? The thing that actually works for us will emerge. And when I say it's a different thing, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a different market, but it could be an approach that you never thought of. It could be a pain that you discover, which you didn't really were aware until you researched the market in depth and in a cool way that we're going to show you next week. So the moral of this story is, without taking deliberate action, the thing that's going to be successful is not going to appear. So you have to start, and you have to be in the field. You got to get out of your head, and really that's the whole thing over the next 4 weeks with the clock ticking on 30 days is getting out of your head, getting on paper, getting in the field. That is what's going to make the big difference. Hi, fact finders, I'm loving you. I love you, and I know how much you're stressing right now. But you've got to look at this intellectually and understand that this is not life or death. It's a molehill, not a mountain. That I'm reliably assured. We don't have moles in Australia, but I'm reliably informed that that is a picture of a molehill. It's not that big, right? Mountains, big. Molehill, not big. Choosing a market to test, molehill. It's just that. We're just going to test something. And the biggest success that you can have for high fact finders, and particularly high fact finders, high follow through, is just follow the process for 30 days. Because guess what? What I'm tricking you into doing is following a deliberate strategy. Because what do I know? The science tells me if you follow a deliberate strategy and you commit to it, the science tells me, not the mumbo jumbo, although there's plenty of quotes I could throw at you to support this. What was it? Goethe and his there is magic in action, blah, 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 blah. Forget all the feel-good motivational posters. Let's look at the science. The science tells us that if I can trick you into doing something deliberately for 30 days, something cool is going to happen. It's just science, right? It's a scientific fact. So that's basically what I'm trying to do here. But understand that we're choosing a market. It's a market test. We're choosing a small segment of a market for a test. And if the test doesn't work, guess what? We've got multiple other segments to test, and we've got multiple other angles in which to test that market. Speaking of breaking things down, single target markets make everything easier. One of the big things, once you've chosen a particular market to test, not for life, just to test, is that it's so big that all of your marketing material becomes incredibly generic, which means that you can't reach out and communicate with people. I used in the book, and Gary Halbert told me this, and it's always front of mind when I'm doing anything. It's, if you're in a crowded railway station at peak hour and you yell out, "Hey you," nobody's going to turn around, right? They're all going to assume you're talking to somebody else. But if you say, "Hey you" in the red jacket, I guarantee at least everybody who's wearing a red jacket will turn around. And of course, if you say, "Hey Jane," guess what? All the Janes are going to turn around. So that in and of itself is one powerful reason to choose a single target market, but there are so many more. When you go to do pains, gains, and jobs to be done, which we'll be doing next week, which is really the secret to the success of this. It's a superpower. It's bringing a gun to a knife fight. If you try to do pains, gains, and jobs to be done on a golf, the market, you'll come up with some, no problem at all. But if you do pains, gains, and jobs to be done for somebody who is got putting problems, well, you can be so much more specific. The pains, gains, and jobs to be done are so much more targeted to somebody who's got a putting problem. You're yelling, "Hey Jane," in a crowded railway station, not "Hey you." And that's so important when we're looking to get people's attention to drive traffic to our funnel. Then, of course, there is this most important phrase. And I'm pretty sure this is one of mine. So, Ed Dale, TM. Every market is a market. I'm today, more convinced than ever. Back in 2005 when we first started the challenge, it was a legit issue. There were plenty of markets that you just couldn't make money with online because the people weren't online yet, right? But now, today, thanks to mobile, which is 10 times larger than anything we ever had at desktop, every single market is a market, including, as I've told the story many times, underwater kickboxing. All we have to figure out is a way to unlock and reach that market, right? So that should take a huge amount of stress off you. With some of the markets that I've seen people make $100,000 with, it just blows my mind. It just makes me so happy to see some of the crazy markets people are making money in. Be it reviewing dog parks, be it valuing pottery. What other thing? There's a couple I'm working on at the moment with private clients that I'd love to tell you about, but I shouldn't. But I'm sure I'll ask them. Actually, we might get them on to interview. But there are just so many different over the years. Coaching plans for parents who are basketball coaches. All these sorts of things. Every market is a market. And if there's another thing which can carry you through this potentially traumatic for you high fact finders week, it's this. You just need 1,000 people paying you $100 over the course of a year, and that's a $100,000 a year business. That's it. That is it. And in a worldwide marketplace, I've got students in Uganda, I've got students in Lapland, I've got students in every continent. I think there's 50 continents alone in this beta program. So, that's amazing. So, everywhere is an opportunity. And thanks to mobile, the world is literally your oyster. And so it's very rare that we can find, where there's a market that hasn't got at least 1,000 people who are passionate about it. All right, let's do this. We've got to figure this out. So what I'm going to do now is give you your tickets. How about that? Why don't I save you some time and give you some tickets for your Kanban? So let's just switch over to my Post-it Plus application and let's write some tickets together. The first thing that we're going to do is a 10-minute free writing exercise. So we're going to set a timer for 10 minutes. You're going to be using the timer a lot, right? I have my comically big time timer, which I love using, but you can use your smartphone, you can use your computer. There are more timers than you can chuck a stick out these days. So here's free writing. It's very easy to explain. There's only 2 rules. One is that your pen never stops during the 10 minutes, okay? It just keeps writing. And even if you get to the point, and you will sometimes, I've got nothing left, I'm empty, I can't believe Ed's made me do this. Fine, right, I'm empty, I haven't got this, I can't believe I can't think of anything more, and I can't think of any markets that I'm potentially interested in. If you do that, I guarantee gold will happen. Right, again, it's science, because your brain, this is not the scientific explanation, but again, our good friend Joe Medina and his amazing book, Brain Rules, will tell us that your brain starts to go, oh gosh, he's actually serious about this stuff. Oh my goodness. So your brain will actually come up with stuff. So that is pretty darn cool. So you just got to write, and here's the other rule is, you're not showing this to anybody. You can chew up the piece of paper, you can shred it, you can eat it, you can do whatever you like. But it's purely a warm-up exercise to get your brain on song for our next ticket, which is 25 minutes outlining possible markets. Now, here's entrepreneurial operating system time. Depending on who you are, a lot of us high quick starts will enjoy doing this in a mind map fashion. Okay, you can see here I've got golf, beginning, driving, putting, equipment, short game, and scribbling it out like this. A lot of high fact finders, high follow-throughs, or high fact finder, low follow-throughs will prefer a far more orderly traditional outline approach. Honestly, don't care. Whatever you're most comfortable with outlining, that's all you need to do. Unlike the first exercise, you don't have to keep your pen going, but for the 25 minutes, I do want to keep it sacrosanct. I want you to put your phone in airplane mode. I want to make sure, if you have to take yourself off to a coffee shop and put on noise cancelling headphones, whatever it is, give yourself the gift of 25 minutes of solid time coming up with all the segments, and try to find as many as possible. The goal here, the competition, is to get as many on your page as possible. For you type A types, I'd love to see you put 100 different segmentations down for potential market ideas, right? Just go nuts. Go as detailed as you possibly can, because here's the thing, all right, and I will say this again and again during this part. No judgment. Do not be sitting there thinking, oh, is this a good market? I don't think this is a good market. Oh, that's a stupid market. Oh, this is crazy. That's dumb. That's too small. Park your editor. There'll be a time for editing, and we will let the market tell us what is going on. So don't stress about that, right? So no judgment at this point. We're going for quantity, not quality. We just want quantity. All right, so just get as many things down on the paper as possible, and then I'm going to give you the easiest ticket you'll ever get. Once you've done the 25 minutes, I want you to step away, right? Ideally overnight, and put it away till tomorrow, because we're going to let your brain get fresh again. And then what we're going to do is circle 3 that intrigue you. 3 segments. So it could be beginner putters in golf. That's an example of a segment. Just 3 segments that intrigue you, and the languaging there is so important. Not that you're an expert in, not that you think is good or bad, not that you think is going to make you money or not make you money, because here's the news: you have no clue. I have no clue. You don't know. I don't know. Nobody knows until we test it, right? So no judging at this point. Just pick 3, because these 3 things are going to be our potential test candidates. Okay, and you've got 10 minutes. Set a timer for 10 minutes. In fact, I've got to write that down. We need to put that in there. All right, 10 minutes. Okay, make sure you use 10 minutes. I've made the point, I think. No judging at this point. Have you got 3? Excellent. We're ready for the next step. No? Okay. We're going to use the most powerful, scientifically proven decision-making tool of all time. I'm going to get you to screw up as many segments as you can into a ball, and I want you to throw them as far. You need a 5 by 5 meter area here, and I want you to throw them all as pieces of paper, and the piece of paper that goes further, that's your market test. It's divine. The deity of your choice has chosen that for you. Okay, so go forward with all the power and faith that you know that market has been divinely selected by me. I'm actually not being facetious here, because of the deliberate and emerging strategy. It's the science. If you're actively working on something, it may well not be the thing that works, but what we do know is the thing that will work for you will emerge from this process. So you need to pick your 3. And then we've got 10 minutes of free writing. So this is actually cool. This is 3 tickets. You can do it as 3 separate tickets. Is the best way to do it, but 10 minutes free writing on each of the 3. Okay, so each of the 3 that you've chosen, the 3 that you've intrigued. And this is the reason we're doing this is, so it's 10 minutes free writing. Nobody's going to see this. It's just to get an idea of what's hidden in your brain about these 3 market segments that intrigue you. Because then when we go to choosing the first one that we're going to test, well, then if it makes sense, if you found yourself easily writing on one way more than the others, then go with that one, because you've obviously got a lot buried in there on that particular market. So let's go low-hanging fruit and pick that one. Now, can you still not pick? Okay, well, then the most important thing this week, I know, And that's why there's not a whole lot of lessons here, because there's not a whole lot of lessons to be had. There's just one big lesson, really. You've got to go do this, and then you've got to call me, right? Because we can't leave this week. No person left behind. We've got to all finish this week up with a market segment ready to go for us to start doing research. So if you can't decide, if you haven't decided, jump onto a brainstorming session and we're going to help you choose, right? I do it. You hear me on the podcast sometimes when I work with a person to help them choose a market. We always do it. It's always successful. Here's your chance. This is why you're in the implementation program. Talk with us so we can help you make sure you've got your market segment. And again, no judging. We don't know if it's going to work or not. In some ways, it doesn't matter if it's going to work or not, because right now we're getting the process locked down. And I know for a fact that if we do this properly, if we commit to this process, the thing that will be successful will emerge. It's a scientific certainty. So with that, go do it. Go forth. Go prosper. I'll speak to you. The actual times for the sessions will be emailed out to you. And look, this is an exciting week. This is an exciting opportunity. You should be thrilled. If this is something that's caught you up in the past, it's not going to catch you up any further. So let's go do it. Let's make this thing happen. And I'll speak to you on the brainstorming calls.